In this lesson, we'll learn how to apply the street names to our map. Alright, so in the previous lesson, we began drawing in sort of the footprint of some of our buildings here. Now, in between lessons, I've come in and added a few more buildings to our map and sort of tightened some of these buildings up in their shape and made them a little more true to the form of the building. So at this point, it's time to begin thinking about adding street names. But before we do that, we need to sort of limit the boundaries of our map. Right now, we've just got our streets drawn in place on top of this reference image. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to come down here to my terrain layer. Let me unlock that. I'm going to lock the buildings and lock the roads layer here. Let me select that terrain layer. I'm going to go ahead and grab my rectangle tool using the keyboard shortcut M, and I'm just going to draw in a square. I'm going to hold shift to constrain this to a square. I'm going to draw this in and just sort of limit the area that our map is going to take up here. So I tell you what, let me get rid of this black stroke and change the color of that so we can sort of see what that is. Let's go ahead and give that a blue color for right now. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and hide our reference image. Now, looking at the buildings, they all extend to a little bit different area here, and I'll probably come in between lessons and clean those up and make those all snug into the same portion of the map. But I tell you what we need to do before we add street names. We need to retract these roads just a little bit. So I tell you what, let's come in here. Let me just change this to a gray color instead of this blue. That's pretty vibrant. And we'll come over and lock our terrain layer, and I'm going to unlock my roads layer for right now. So I'm going to come in using my direct selection arrow, which is the keyboard shortcut A, and I'm just going to retract these anchor points at the end of these roads and snap them in using my smart guides to this rectangle shape I've drawn. Now I'm holding shift here to constrain these paths to a 45-degree angle, but it's basically just retracting these roads to the edge of our map. So you can see here we're really just doing some cleanup along the way. Now, this is going to actually help in applying the street names to the streets because we have more of an accurate street to work with. So we're going to be able to better center our type up and position that on our streets based on the street lengths. So we've got all those streets cleaned up here. So I tell you what, let's come back over to our layer stack. And let's go ahead and select everything on our roads layer just by clicking on the far right side of this layer right here. You can see we select everything. It's highlighted in red, and we have a little red box here. Now, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer. So let's go ahead and name this layer by double-clicking on it. We're going to call this Street Names. And now, typically, we could move this artwork from the roads layer to the street names layer just by dragging this little red cube up, or this little red square up onto this layer. But I'm going to go ahead and hold Alt instead of just dragging it. I'm going to hold down Alt while I drag it, and we're going to actually make a copy of that artwork. So if we hide this street names layer, we still have our paths here. Let's go ahead and hide our roads, and now we have a copy of our streets on the street name layer. So we're going to work with this layer for right now. We could actually come in and lock our roads layer if we so choose. And let me go ahead and just minimize that layers panel. And I'm going to come over here to my type tool. And what I'm looking for is the type on a path tool right here. So let me go ahead and grab that tool here, and I have actually the street names pulled up on another screen, so I know we can't see those right now, but I'm just going to come in and start mousing over these paths with this type on a path tool and applying the street names. So I know that this is Northwest 11th Street, so let me just click on that path. Notice that the stroke actually disappears, and now I can go ahead and come in here and type on this path. So let me just type in Northwest 11th Street. And let me go ahead and hit a Control A, and that's going to select all the type that I just went ahead and put on there. And let's come up to our character panel. I'm going to access that through my control panel up here at the top, just by clicking on the blue word character. And let's choose a typeface. Let's see, I kind of like Myriad Pro for this, and I think that's a good universal typeface that most people are going to have. So we'll just stick with that for now. I want to go ahead and drop this down, and let's go ahead and choose the bold condensed version of this. It's right here. So we'll select that here. And I tell you what, let's go ahead and adjust the tracking just a little bit. Maybe we jump that out to about 30. And that looks pretty good. So we've got our first street named here. And let's go ahead and think about adding another one in. I think the next road I'd like to take on is this one right here. Now, remember we have a couple roundabouts here, and in looking at the reference on my other screen, I see that this one's named Class and Drive. So let's go ahead and grab our Type on a Path tool again. Let's go ahead and click on this portion right here first. Now, clicking on that, we've got our flashing text insertion cursor. So let's go ahead and type in Class and Drive, just like so. Now, if we think about this portion of road here, this portion actually is going to have a median down the middle of the road. So this isn't going to be a good position for this street name. It's going to fall right on top of that median. So we either want this to fall in the lane to the south of this road or to the north of it here. So in order to do that, we're going to need to add a little bit of baseline shift to this type. So I'm going to come up here to my character panel, and the baseline shift control is right here. We can actually shift that below the baseline, or we can shift it above it. It goes both ways. We can input a positive number or a negative number here. So I'm going to go ahead and shift that down. Let's go ahead and shift that about 10 points below the baseline for right now. Now, I'll probably have to come in and adjust that once we actually get the median drawn, but for right now, that'll be good. And, you know, I think we're ready to go ahead and take on another road here. So, you know, Classen actually has several portions to it. Now, in looking at the reference map, we've got this part of this road is actually also Classen Drive. Now, this road actually changes here at this bend. It becomes Northwest 10th Street. So, let's go ahead and apply Classen Drive up here. Let me just go ahead and click on this. Double click on that. I'm going to copy that text, and I'm going to come over, grab my Type on a Path tool, click here, and we're just going to paste that in. Now, you can see here that not all the type is actually shown here. So let me grab my selection tool, and I'm going to go ahead and change the color on this layer to something besides yellow so we can see that a little better. So I'm going to come in here, change this. Let's go ahead and change this one. Let's see, we've got, let's go ahead and change it to violet. That'll be easier for us to see. Okay, so zooming in on this type, you can see here that we have some boundaries. We have a right boundary, a left boundary, and then we have another line right here in the center of our type, and that handles the center point of the type. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this left boundary. I'm going to stretch that over to the end of this path. So you can see here that we've now got all of our type visible here, but we also have a problem. We've got our type and it's aligned to the left. So let me come in here. I'm going to double click on the type and select it all. Let's go ahead and assign the center alignment option here, just like so. Alright, now one thing you may actually want to consider in doing multiple text entries like this, where the text is all going to be pretty much visibly the same, except for the baseline shift that's applied to this type right here. Speaking of baseline shift, let me go ahead and get rid of that here. I'm going to put in a 0 value there. So, in dealing with all this text that's very similar, we may want to create what's known as a character style. So we can actually open that panel by coming up to our window drop-down menu, looking for type, and then finding the character styles option here. Now, there's a lot of information here in the character styles, and we're not going to go over all of this right now, but all I know is that we have manually inputted some text here, and we've actually got this looking pretty much exactly the way we want it to. Now, we may need to change the color of our text once we get the roads in place, so that maybe it's a light-colored text on a dark-colored road, but we've got the text formatted the way we want it. So we've got the typeface chosen, we've got the size, we've got the tracking, we've got the text orientation. So let's go ahead and come over here to our character styles panel, and I want to create a new character style based on this selected text. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this button right here, and you can see here that a new character style number 1 has been generated here. So let me go ahead and deselect our text, and I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the character style options here. We can get to those by double clicking on the character style. And we're going to get this character style options box come up. So let's just name this style. Let's go ahead and call it street names. And you can see here that there are some general options, which is really giving you sort of a summary of everything that's being applied. We have some basic character formatting options here: font family, font style, size, kerning, tracking, leading, things like that. We have some advanced character formats as far as the scale and the baseline shift. We also have control over the character color here. So once we actually get our streets in place, if we have this character style applied to all our street names, we can actually come in here and make a color change to the character style, and it'll change all our street names for us. We don't have to go back and change each one individually. Then we have some open type features here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK on this for right now. It's going to rename our street names here. Let's go ahead and just collapse those panels. Snap them up into position right about there. So now we've got several more street names here. I'm going to probably go ahead and create the rest of these in between lessons. That way, when we pick up in the next lesson, we can focus on creating the terrain for our map.